Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox, and we are approaching the top of the hour on this Wednesday, February 11th, 8:55 on the East Coast and 5:55 on the West Coast. My name is Josh Breslow, and I want to get you right back into some of the big top stories that we are covering here at this hour. And you're taking a live look over El Paso, Texas, as the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, is closing the airspace around El Paso International Airport for 10 days, grounding all flights to and from that airport. A notice posted on the FAA's website said the temporary flight restrictions were for, quote, special security reasons, but did not provide any additional details just yet. The airport said in an Instagram post that all flights to and from the airport would be grounded from late last night through late on February 20th, including commercial, cargo, and general aviation flights. Now, it suggested travelers contact El Paso, a border city with a population of nearly 700,000, and essentially said that this is a cross-border commerce location, but they are asking people to contact El Paso to express their concerns if they do have any. Now, I want to pop this up on your screen. This is a tweet coming in. It's a series of tweets from Representative Veronica Escobar. She is a Democrat representing Texas, and said the highly consequential decision by FAA to shut down the El Paso airport for 10 days is unprecedented and has resulted in significant concern within the community. As I mentioned, a series of posts from what my office and I have been able to gather overnight and early this morning. There is no immediate threat to the community or surrounding areas. There was no advance notice provided to my office, the city of El Paso, or anyone involved in airport operations. She went on to say, we have urged the FAA to immediately lift the temporary flight restrictions placed on the El Paso area. I will continue to make information public as I learn it. No question, there are a lot of questions this morning about all of this. Philip Mann is an adjunct assistant professor at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University and an aviation safety expert, joining us now live to break down what we know and really what we don't at this point. Philip, thank you so much for taking the time to join us this morning on Live Now from Fox.
Sure.
And Philip, I wanted to start by kind of having you break down for folks out there, because this is a lot of information that's coming in. I mentioned we know a lot, and we also don't know a lot, exactly what all of this really means.
Yeah, so what this alert means, it's called a temporary flight restriction. These are usually something done around sporting events or maybe presidential movements for a few hours here and there, just to basically clear everybody out of the airspace, so the whatever security operations going on or whatever events going on doesn't disrupt travel or doesn't become unsafe for people. In this case, basically the FAA has just drawn a big circle around El Paso, Texas, and said nobody in, nobody out for 10 straight days. And it does affect all air travel. It affects commercial travel. It affects cargo planes. It affects general aviation, so business jets, stuff like that. It also affects all the drones. It affects everything in the area from the ground all the way up to 18,000 feet. That's where the high and fast aircraft that are just cruising through the area. And it's it's kind of unusual here that this came down with as those tweets indicated, that you're showing like no notice to people on the ground, no notice to the folks that were there. Because normally if there's something like a military operation going on, the security entities, the military, Homeland Security, whoever's involved, would have to coordinate with the local people to let them know what's going on, because they're going to need local coordination with police and that kind of stuff. So this is kind of a really, really prior to 9/11. This is except for 9/11, this is kind of really an unprecedented sort of situation.
And I want to talk to you about this as a whole, but as we're talking, we are getting breaking news coming in from the FAA just saying the temporary closure of airspace over El Paso has been lifted. There is no threat to commercial aviation. All flights will resume as normal. So definitely interesting as we're talking about all of this, and you have concern that's being expressed from people out there. They announced this overnight. Now you have it lifted. What do you make of that overall? Do you think it's the folks that came out and said, what are you doing?
I think it very well could be. It could be the people pushing back and saying, hey, we need notice to do this, because again, shutting down an entire city's airspace for 10 days is very significant. It would have affected every flight in, every flight out. UPS, life flights, everything was affected. I mean, there was nothing accepted from this. And it it may also indicate that whatever they were doing, maybe wasn't as solid or wasn't as urgent as the process seems to indicate that they followed. So whatever it was, they could take it back and they could just reset it.
And you kind of mentioned here that, we could see potential impacts. And I wanted to ask you, from the time that it was essentially closed here, it was closed for a very short period of time, just a few hours. Does that have kind of a domino effect where folks will see the impacts of that, even though the airspace is back open?
Oh, yeah, because the airlines and the air operators were forecasting out for that full 10 days, because it's pretty unusual that a TFR is put into place and then is canceled significantly short of its projected time. So the airlines and things, I imagine at least through today, at least through today, maybe through tomorrow, we're canceling flights, redirecting flights, we're canceling logistics, we're rerouting shipments. So we're going to see whatever impact that had, whatever rerouting or rearranging was happening to accommodate this 10-day thing, at least in this first couple days of it, is going to probably play out as if it was closed anyway.
And even though it has been lifted, you talked about this over the top, but I did want to kind of get your take on how often you do see something like this, because it has been quite a while since, the airspace has been restricted without any kind of really warning to officials there in El Paso, passengers, none of that.
Yeah, the last time anything happened that was one, this sudden, and two, this long, was pretty much 9/11. That was the last time where the FAA just said, all right, everybody park your planes, stop flying. But we see flight restrictions all the time in the airspace around, big stadium events, fireworks displays, and like I said, executive presidential movements, around military training exercises. They happen all the time, but they're normally for, a few hours here and there. They're coordinated very far, or as far as is practical in advance. Everybody knows what's going on. Nobody's surprised when they hit. So that's kind of the how quick this came down without notice and for how long. All of those factors are something we don't normally see and really haven't seen for a couple decades.
Any idea how they alert city officials, passengers, all of that about a closure like this? Because we've mentioned it a few times, but this all kind of happened within the last several hours. A lot of folks hearing about it when they arrived there at the airport in El Paso.
Yeah, well, the first push is going to be the FAA putting out a notice. Now, the way this one happened. Now, normally there would be some phone calls and some meetings before that would happen with the local officials. But in this case, they put out this notice. It's called a notice to air missions, or a NOTAM. And what that does is that alerts everybody in the airspace that there's this restriction, and it is up to the operators, dispatchers, and pilots to be aware of that. It's accessible to them. They check it before every flight, so the operators are aware of it through that official channel. Now, from there, passengers and cargo shippers and stuff like that will learn from it through their carrier, the same way they would learn about any other flight cancellation or flight delay, through their apps, through their text messages or phone calls, or the signs at the airport telling them their flight's been delayed or canceled. They will see all of it through their normal patterns. And the passengers and stuff may never know why their flight was canceled, or may never know why their flight was delayed, but they'll find out about it just the same as they would anything else. And that doesn't really help things for some people, because they may not find out that the flight that DFR has been lifted until sometime later when they see the news or something.
All right, Philip, man, thank you so much for taking the time to join us, breaking it all down.
Sure.
Of course, we had that breaking development there in the middle of our interview, but anything we missed, anything that you want to make sure to add here before I let you go?
Yeah, I think with with this any kind of TFR, any kind of flight restriction like this, especially with that national security designation like this one had, is just kind of, for people that are out there in the airspace, it's a very serious thing, especially for pilots and business operators and stuff like that. They need to be aware of these, because some of these situations, like this one said, if you violate the airspace, that could mean lethal force is applied to you, which means your airplane gets shot down or you get arrested or something like that. And so it is a very extreme sort of restriction, and for these kind of things to pop up, it's super important for the operators and stuff to be allowed to handle in the way they need to, but they also need more notice, and the cities and stuff need to coordinate and cooperate and make sure that we handle this so that nobody runs afoul of the restriction, regardless of why it's in place.
All right, Philip, man, thank you again for being here with us. We definitely appreciate it.
Thanks.
And I want to pop this up on your screen once again if you are just joining us. Of course, the airspace closure happened, but we learned from the FAA just about maybe 5 minutes ago the temporary closure of airspace over El Paso has been lifted. There is no threat to commercial aviation. All flights will resume as normal. As we mentioned, though, there will still kind of be that domino effect as a result of the closure. Now, we heard from Representative Veronica Escobar. She was tweeting out a series a bit earlier on this morning about the fact that El Paso officials, lawmakers, nobody had been informed that this was happening. She just posted here, the FAA is rightfully lifting the temporary restricted airspace. I will again reiterate, there is no threat to El Paso or the surrounding areas. If we get any sort of update here, we're going to bring it to you as we always do on Live Now from Fox. But right here, you are taking a live look over the city of El Paso, Texas.